All right, there you go. Hello and welcome to the Success with Sabrina podcast. Today on the show, I'm featuring a very special guest, Jeff Hayzlett. Now, Jeff is the CEO of C-Suite Network. He's also a Fortune 100 executive. Now, you guys, that is like a former Fortune 100 executive, right? But there's only 500 of these in the world. So a huge amount of success that he's accomplished in his career. He's a truly serial entrepreneur, having sold or bought over 250 companies and produced $25 billion in transactions. That is a lot of moving money. So I'm excited to be talking to Jeff about success today and his career path. Yeah, so thank you for being on the show today, Jeff.
Well, thank you so much. I love that introduction. That's a great introduction, and so great to be going live on Facebook and being a part of the podcast. So thank you. Yeah, that 25 billion. I always think about that number. You know, that's 25 billion in terms of the sales of the company. My last company, I was running a budget of 17 billion just in marketing with about 7,500 marketing people. And of course, the company was grossing about 180 billion at the time. So it was a good sized company.
Yeah, I heard from a mentor a long time ago when I first started in business, and she said, business is all about moving people and moving money, right?
Yeah.
And so you sure moved a lot of money.
Yeah, well, a lot of people too. I know a lot of folks. That's why we've been able to be so successful at the C-Suite Network, is knowing all of these executives around the world and just helping one another. And by helping one another, wow, look what we've been able to do.
Yes, absolutely amazing. Amazing. Now, how did the C-Suite Network idea come about? Like, how did that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was involved with a number of different groups where I used to pay to belong to what we would call a mastermind, is the best way to describe it, or a peer-to-peer council. And I would spend $50,000 or $100,000 a year to be a member of certain kinds of groups, very elite groups, where I have a chance to be able to, to share and learn and maybe doing a little cheering. And so in doing that, I saw the real value of putting people, the right kinds of people in the room. And so after I left Eastman Kodak, I went and did a show on Bloomberg called The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett, where I took people into the boardrooms of major corporations to show them how they're doing something or what they did and why did they do it, and see what that decision making, to show people what it's like, in a room where 99% of the people who work for the company never get to go. So having been in those rooms before, it was always intriguing, the kinds of conversations. I used to sit there by myself going, geez, somebody should do something around here. And then I'd realize, well, it's me. So I started this television show. It was such a huge success. And then I said, well, how can we expand this to other people? How can people get the same kind of feeling? How can we learn? How can we share? How can we cheer? And of course, now, really important for us to care. And so we started the C-Suite Network. And so it's really like a giant sequoia tree, and if you've ever been in one of those very big redwood forests, sequoia forests, you walk under these huge trees, there's these unbelievable canopies, and under this canopy is this lush ecosystem. Well, that describes the C-Suite Network, where we have a community, we have content, we have C-Suite Radio, C-Suite, we have over 250 podcast shows, we have C-Suite TV, 70 TV shows on Apple, Roku, and on broadcast, and then and we have meetings all the time, and then of course services. So that's really what it's about. It's like this big canopy, and then all the stuff going on underneath it. Just like, there's big operations like Amazon or Salesforce or Facebook. They're very similar. They built these wonderful platforms. We just wanted to build a big tree.
Yes, it makes total sense because we can't get there alone, right? And that's really the purpose. But Jeff, so I created this podcast to examine some of the inherited conversations that we have around success and how we struggle sometimes to really find that sweet spot, I would call it, right? So I'm going to tell you my favorite quote on success is from Thomas Merton. And he says, so what he says is I lost the quote now, but basically I remember by heart, right? So he's saying that we spend most of our lives, climbing that ladder of success, right? Only to find out later that is leaning against the wrong wall. So that's really what it says. Did you ever find yourself climbing that ladder only to realize at some point you're like, hey, I don't think this is my game. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
people that are overachievers, they can excel in so many different things, right? And so my goal is to help people to design and define what success really means to them, so that later they don't find themselves like this quote talks about.
Oh, I think you're spot on. And I think the real key for most people is define your conditions of satisfaction. And what I mean by that is, what is it you want out of the game? What is it you want out of life? What do you want out of relationships? So I'm constantly, if you and I were going to business together, I would define our conditions of satisfaction. What do you want out of it? What do I want out of it? How do we mutually make those beneficial? So that's important for us. And when you talk about that ladder leaning up against the wrong wall, the wrong building, I totally get it. So the way I describe it is the process, the way in which we do it, the journey up and down that ladder. Well, that's really the success. That's how I would define success, is that journey up, the journey down, being on that ladder. And right now, everybody's saying, well, how did you know that the C-suite network was going to be successful? I didn't know. But I'm cocky enough to always believe that anything I do is successful. So what I tell people I'm doing is I'm building the plane while I'm flying it. It's a plane, all right? And I'm going to add more seats. I'm going to add less seats. I'm going to add a bigger engine. But, I'm going to constantly be flying it, and it will constantly change. There's a saying, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, is fail fast. Well, that sucks. Failing sucks. I like to win fast. And so you're going to fail in everything we do in business. So what I try to really have people focus is focus on the successes and how to succeed fast. Keep that plane flying, because you don't want to fail. All right. You're going to run out of gas. Sometimes you're going to have to coast. You're going to have to refill in air. You're going to have to put some new tires on. I mean, the key is to keep it moving and keep it flying. And that's how you stay ahead of the bank that way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because I don't think that any of us has it all figured out, and we changed the directions, right? I remember that what you were talking about reminded me of the movie, the Apple movie with Steve Jobs, when he brought the product to the marketplace. He went to this man that was in contact with the people that would be buying this machine, right? And the guy said, oh, no, this is not what we want. We want this. And he said, all right, sure. And he got home and he's like, how in the hell am I going to create this?
Right. Well, the same thing holds with Steve. And the other person I happen to know, I used to deal as a focus executive with Steve. So I always had to do business with him. We were always suing each other all the time. And so I always had to deal with him. And last time I saw him was at the Academy Awards shortly before his death. But I sponsored a conference in which both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were at the same conference, and they sat on either side of me at this conference. And I've known them both for many years, and I knew Bill much better than Stephen. But Bill Gates, when he first started the company, he told somebody, they said, well, we need this kind of software. He says, fine, I'll build it for you. And he had no clue. And then he went out and bought it from somebody else. And that became DOS. That was the operating system for Microsoft. And it was the first operating system they had. And they bought it from somebody else. Had no clue how he was going to do it or where he was going to get it from, but he made it work.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Jeff, throughout your career, did you ever struggle with like this feeling of maybe not good enough, or that you're not there yet? When did you realize you're like, I'm pretty successful? I think I've made it. Like you came to that realization in your career.
Well, we always have those things. I mean, all of us do. Now, even once you get to the epitome of success, if you don't think that Trump doesn't have it, he has it. We all have it. Everybody has it. Years ago, I was at an event with a bunch of celebrities, and I was talking to them about how to monetize their own personal brands. And someone said this very similar question. They said, Jeff, what about those voices in your head? Those little voices that tell you you're not great, and that you're not good enough, or you're fat, or whatever it might be. And I just said, I stopped listening to those voices a long time ago. Mm-hmm. They're still there. They're still talking back there. They're still going on all the time. They're just going away, chatting away all the time. But I just stopped listening to them. At some point, you've got to be sure enough about yourself to where you know what you're doing. Yeah, is it perfect? No. If I were perfect, oh my gosh, I would love that. But I know me, and I've been married for almost 40 years. I know me, and I wouldn't be married to me, right? So I know how bad it is, right? And so the same thing holds with business. The same thing holds with being a parent. The same holds with being a good human being or a good Christian or whatever it is you're in your life. We're never good enough. I can tell you that. We never are. That's the great thing about the human spirit, is that we can achieve greater things, and we can keep striving. We keep improving. We can keep learning. We can keep getting healthier. We can keep getting, all these good things can happen to us if your mindset is right and get to where you need to go. So first of all, if you think that the chairman of this company or the star or the singer or the football player doesn't have doubts, you're nuts. You're nuts, because they all do. And they all have that momentary, they all have the same voices. And the difference is how you push those back and push them away and get drawn to the light and not to the darkness. And I think that's an important thing for all of us to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Now, you've said it before, that it's not the lucky that wins in the end, it's the relentless. Right?
Yeah.
So what does it mean to be relentless nowadays in this challenging times?
Well, right now you have to be. It's depressing. It can get downright, cruel for you in terms of some businesses that are out there. But even I was dealing with it yesterday with an employee that we have, one of our team members who was just out on her own by herself, and she's down, she's depressed, and she started crying, and in our team meeting, and she just needed to know that she's loved and that she's cared for, and she has a family, and it just happens to be called work, and we're all here for you. It's not an easy thing to do, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Right.
And not everyone can do it. And to be an entrepreneur, to be in business, to be successful, you have to work hard at it. And it doesn't come easy for most people. And you always have to learn to be a beginner and change the way you do things and constantly improve and constantly adapt, because if you don't adapt or change, you're going to die, kind of like what we're seeing right now in terms of this virus. If you don't wear a mask, if you don't practice safe distancing, if you don't do those things. And the same thing holds true with your business in terms of expanding your business and getting it where it needs to go. And that's where you have to fundamentally understand that, you have to be relentless. You have to keep trying. You have to keep striving to improve. It's in my nature. And I think it's in the nature of most entrepreneurs, being able to want to do it better and better and have a real passion for being able to deliver that way.
Yeah, it's living with that curiosity, right? Like living with the unknown. And one of the things that I love hearing you speak is talking about the hardest questions that one can ask himself, right? And I thought that was so valuable, because I truly believe that the quality of our lives and the quality of our businesses are directly proportional to the quality of questions that we're asking ourselves and our businesses all the time, right? So what is one question that you have in mind lately?
Well, I call them mirror moments. My very first book, I've written 4 bestsellers now, but my very first book was The Mirror Test. And it was those key questions that you need to stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself, because the only person responsible for your success is the one that's staring back at you in the mirror. That's it. So I think you have to frame those questions, around the key things that are in front of you right now. My key question right now is, how can I continue to gain scale and to gain success with less resources, right? Because, let's be very clear for all of us in COVID, and I don't know anybody that's flush with a lot of cash, and it's difficult, it's tough, and people are slowing down paying me, which means I'm slowing down paying them, or quite frankly, being real blunt, not paying them sometimes because it's just not there or whatever. We have to work around those things. But, to be able to say, do I have what it takes with the scarcity of resources to get us to where we need to go? And then what do I need to adapt or change in order to meet that? And sometimes that meets some very tough priorities you have to choose. Like, I can't hire this person. I can't do that. I mean, I see so many opportunities in front of me right now of buying this company, making this acquisition. I wish I had the cash, that's why I keep buying lottery tickets every week. It's amazing. And then I'll have all the funding I ever wanted to have, right? But no, it does make making choices. Like, you know, my team will say, well, we need to get this. Well, we can't get it right now. You know why? Because we can't afford it. Now, do you want to get paid, or you want me to pay that thing? Which what? You know, because those are the kinds of situations you got, and that means, you know, well, geez, I could cut some people and go get what I need, but then I wouldn't be a good steward, be a value-based company of putting people above profits, which I think is a very important thing for us to do. I think those are responsibilities that some business leaders we have is, you know, as part of being in the free enterprise system, is building a great community and great people and a great world.
Yes, absolutely. I heard this before, and it stuck with me for so many years. It's create great systems, right? And then use the systems and love the people, right?
Yeah, there you go. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how much time did you actually dedicate towards, because you talk a lot about act fast, right? Like it's all about the speed of the market. And I know you're a marketing guru, and so I'm curious, how long does it take for you to actually take an idea that you have, whether it is to change directions in your company or to perhaps even start a new business or whatever it is? How long do you sit with that, and how much time do you allow yourself? Do you push yourself? Like, how does it work? How is the process?
Sometimes I allow no time. I just say, this is what we're doing. I mean, like, for instance, March the 12th, you know, it started becoming very tough with COVID, right? And by March 14th, I was on the phone with the team and saying, we're moving, and we're moving fast, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to kill off all of our physical events. We're not going to have them through the fall. And later, by April, I decided by the end of the year, we're not going to be able to do events like we did. So that was it. So I said, and so everybody's going, well, no, what we need to do, everybody needs hugs now. Everybody needs to be supported. I said, we are going to be supported. What we're going to be is we're going to be business first responders. They said, what the heck's that? I said, whatever we say it is, that's what it is. Because look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I can't even sew a mask. But what I can do is go help businesses. So we're going to do that. And so, like first responders who respond to an emergency and run into a fire, we're going to run into the business problem. Yeah. We're going to take this on. You know, we're not going to sit here. I'm not going to complain that I'm not getting my 1K this year from United. I'm not making platinum on Marriott. I'm not doing this. I'm not. Put all that aside. We're going to get to the core of what we have to do, and we're going to help people. And by helping people, it's going to help our business, and we're going to change the way we deliver. And we did that immediately, and I'm glad we did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here today. You know, I would not be, because our business would have just been devastated. But what we've done is we were able to sustain it and now start growing it. And in some aspects of our business, it's like a hockey stick. We're already into the hockey stick stage, which is fabulous. But when you say how fast, well, listen, when you bought and sold 250 companies in your career, when you've launched hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of products, when you've managed people, you've seen a lot of different things. I've done everything from political campaigns to, you know, pushing cure for diseases to whatever, you know, to selling cameras. You see a lot, and you see some similar trends, and you see things, and you act based on that experience. That experience gives me that, you know. A lot of times I'll sit with staff or with people, and they'll say, let me explain it. You don't need to explain it. I got it. You had me, you had me there. And because I can tool those or see those reiterations of the circles of action cycles that we have to do. And I see those 1,000 things like that because I've been through it enough. And so sometimes it takes me longer. Sometimes the idea isn't quite percolated, but, you know, here's the key question I ask, and I think it's a good one. Did anyone die? Mm-hmm. So an idea. I launched a product. I launched a company. Did anyone die too fast? No. Usually most of what we do isn't brain surgery, right? Most of what we do, could I have done it better? Yeah. Could I have done it? Yeah. Could I have done it cheaper? Yeah. Could I have done it more less expensive? Yeah. All those questions, right? In the end, it's about action, and I believe the more you're in action is better than not being. And so there's a saying that we use is never wait for perfect. but once done, strive for perfect. And that's what we try to do in our operation. We never wait for it to be perfect. We never wait for it to be fully baked, fully ready to launch, and then we start to make it perfect, very much like flying that airplane.
Right. And and I want to go a little bit deeper because I think there's so much value in what you're saying right now, not just when you're launching something new, but like when you're talking about all these years of experiences and seeing things, right? And I think that's the joy of like becoming more mature in business, is that you really start to realize these moments where you're a little bit wiser, like you just kind of know, you feel people, you feel things, right? And I think that one of the things that I encounter a lot in people that I've worked with in the past is that hesitation to make decisions, right? Like with the fear that those decisions might be the wrong ones. Or so you sit, and you try to gather more information, or and sometimes that's devastating to a business, really. Can you give me an example of your personal life, or maybe a client or someone that is associated with your network that you saw that happening?
Well, I mean, I see it all the time. We see it every day. I mean, you fundamentally have to understand, first of all, is the business decision that you're about to make. Let's just say it's going to be starting a business. If you're going to start a business, you need to really know, will the dog eat the dog food? And that's an old saying in marketing. You can sell dog food, but will the dog eat it? And you can make a hamburger, but is it good? Is it better than somebody else's hamburger? So you have to think that through, first of all, to understand your differentiation or how you're going to dominate the category, because otherwise then you're going to be playing a different game. And so, but we see that all the time. But first, fundamentally understand, at least I can make that decision a little quicker because I've seen so many of whether, hey, I think that can go or not. Now, will it go as big as I want or as profitable I want? That's a different question. Okay. But it'll certainly, I think we can make it work and get it to a point of scale. But you see a lot of people who hold off on inaction because they're afraid, and that's the biggest thing for most people, is they're afraid. And you have to learn to overcome that fear, and that fear just lasts a short bit of time. You have to be willing to be a beginner in what you begin. If you want to be a maestro, you got to learn to play a lot of bad notes. There's no way around it. You're going to have to play bad notes before you can master that instrument. And the same thing is going to have to be about the business. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I mean, look at what Jeff Bezos. I can remember when Jeff was sitting in a room. I used to call on him. And Jeff Bezos used to be in a room in a simple desk with other people all in the same room, little geeky looking guy, doesn't look anything like he does today. And yeah, he was like doing this thing. What, are you nuts? I mean, you crazy? And his sign was a little hand-drawn sign for a long time on his desk. And so, yeah, but he did it, and he kept trying, and he kept trying. And how many millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars they have lost to get them to where they are today, and that's an interesting kind of thing. So, do you have what it takes? Again, it's getting back to being relentless.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched a little bit in the beginning and then you end, and you, just like a great interviewee, you answered my question. But I like what you were talking about in the beginning when you said, think about how good is it? Like, how are you differentiating yourself, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. And as far as like, do you consider yourself and your business to go against the mainstream? And if you consider that, what is the key component that makes it go against the mainstream?
Well, you got to be careful about going against the mainstream. If no one wants it, then it's a problem. Right. So you can go against the mainstream, but what you have to do is capture customer behavior, right? So let's take Uber, for example. Uber, who would have thought Uber? Now, Uber got started because 3 guys got really drunk in Paris and couldn't get a cab after 1 a.m. That's what happened. So they had to walk across the entire city. So while they were on that walk, they sobered up and they realized, we could start Uber. I could be, because they didn't know, they couldn't speak French. They didn't know how to call a limo, and they didn't know how to use, and the cab shut down after 2 o'clock in the morning in France, in Paris. They just go home because they want to go home. That's the way it works over there. And, but there's a business that totally disrupted the way we do transportation. But it captures customer behavior. It captures what they want. It captured because no one would have thought, oh, let's come up, or how about this one? I love this one, Airbnb. Who would have thought 20 years ago that you're going to let someone stay in your house, pay you money, and sit naked on your couch? Nobody would say that, right? That totally disruptive in terms of the system, but it captured customers' behavior of wanting to stay in a cozy place, stay in a less expensive place, there's dishes, there's a fridge, there's all these amenities that and more like home.
Yeah, and going back to the Uber conversation, what's interesting is that this kind of behavior, like customer behavior that you're talking about, was actually already being done for years in Europe. Like that was such a because I lived in Europe for a while,
yeah.
And they get rides from people like a lot more common than in the US. When I got there, I was like, "Are you sure?" Like they're like, "Oh yeah, it's fine." Like so, it was something that they were just already doing in Europe. But obviously someone had the vision, had the idea, and really created a huge, massive business out of it. And
I'm watching. Yeah, I just learned of another one. There'll be sharing of tools. There'll be more businesses that share pickup because everybody needs a friend with a pickup truck. So there'll be a Billy Bob of pickup trucks. There's no doubt about that. You call Billy Bob or whoever, and they show up with a pickup truck and help you haul stuff. So that's going to happen. You're going to see, sharing of tools. There are certain tools that I have to go buy or get because I live on a ranch, and I only going to use them once in my lifetime. So I got to go rent them. Well, how about somebody else has it and I can get it for a fraction of the cost rather than going to this expensive place, standing in line for all day to go get all the stuff that goes with it. And then I just learned of another business where you can actually sign up just to show houses. You don't have to be a realtor. I know a woman who whenever she needs some extra cash, she decides on the weekend she hosts an open house. She works for 4 hours, gets paid, $80 to show a house, and the realtor gets 5 open houses that weekend. He or she is not limited to one time.
That is mind-blowing. So interesting that you're mentioning this because one of my clients she owns a real estate brokerage here in Miami, and we were just talking about this because she just launched in a branch in Orlando, and she's like, "Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to pay some of the agents to do the opening houses for me," And we were brainstorming this, and I wasn't even aware that there is a business out there. So now I'm gonna bring it up to her.
There's an app that does that, and you can go on it, and then people show up, and they just sign up to show your houses for you. It's awesome.
It's awesome, absolutely. Now, I have heard you talk a little bit about transparency, and I love this subject because I think that a lot of businesses talk a lot about transparency, but they don't live it. You know what I'm saying? Like there is no situation in their businesses that really puts them in a position of really being transparent. So I want to hear from you. When is it that you actually applied the transparency and you felt a little uncomfortable, perhaps a little risky, but you did it anyways? And what were the results of that transparency? And do you feel like that's what business ought to do? Is it good for every business, or like, what is your take on that?
That's good for every business. I think you need to be radically transparent. I've seen great examples of businesses that have done it. Probably the biggest example is the one that I detail in my books. I detail a lot in speeches, and it's a television show that I did all around Domino's, because Domino's, went and changed its name, changed its recipe. They said the customers used to taste the pizza and said it tastes like cardboard. And they went out and said, look, it does. It tastes like cardboard, but we're going to change it, and we're going to make it with world-class recipes, world-class chefs, world-class ingredients. They changed the name from Domino's Pizza to Domino's, and then they changed the recipe of the pizza. And the result was, oh my gosh, their stock went from 70 cents to over $109, one of the largest increase in stock histories, all by just telling the truth. And they advertised it. So it's nuts. The first time I think most of us use transparency in business is actually having to let someone go. Actually sitting down with someone and saying, hey, this isn't working out. Right. And it's better to have those kinds of transparent conversations early and fast and as quick as possible. And so I think that's the first real example where most people see it is there, in terms of just being really radically transparent, like, hey, this isn't working out for us. And, and those are the kinds of situations. But I believe and I learned this very early on. Like one time, one of my employees, I was having a really tough cash problem. I owned a printing business, owned a couple of them at the time. and I was really having a tough time with cash. And my manager got a great buy on paper, and so he bought a truckload of paper, which he saved me thousands and thousands of dollars. But me putting out that cash meant I had no more cash, and I didn't tell him that we were short on cash. I was afraid to tell him that, hey, it's really tight, it's really tough. We got to watch the pennies. We can't spend anything. We're going to make it, no problem, no. But yet here he was trying to do a good thing for me and almost put me under, right? So that's when I learned very important. It's very important to share the numbers, share the mood, to share the information with the key people in the company so that they can help make the same decisions I would make. And so that's a great way of being able to do it. And your employees know anyway. At that time, quite frankly, I was paying things cash on delivery, COD, cash on delivery. I wasn't buying new cars. I wasn't going on vacations. I wasn't, I'm bringing a bag lunch to work. That they'll know that things aren't as well as, he just bought a new Mercedes or he bought a new pickup truck, and oh my gosh, he's going to Aruba or he's going wherever, and they figure that stuff out pretty doggone quick.
So they know, they have a sense anyways. But what I love about your answer is that I was thinking of transparency more like you're talking about towards your employees, right? An internal transparency, let's call it that way. But the pizza example is even more great because it's like, not only strive to be transparent with your company and your employees and your team, but also how can we strive to be transparent with our clients? Like, because they know it too, right?
Right, right.
Try to sugarcoat it or...
Yeah, it's like an airline. How about just tell me the truth? Tell me that the plane's broken and it's not weather, or, those kinds of things. Wouldn't we want to have people say, listen, there's not a chance in hell you're catching your flight tonight. Right. Rather than making you wait for 3 hours, right?
Well, and that's what we did.
So I think it's okay to have good conversations with people and say, no, we're not, we don't do that. Or yes, we do this. Or this is the way we're going to handle it. And people are okay with it. They just want to be listened to, and they want to have a say in what's happening to them and for them, or around them. And so the more you're transparent about that, the better it is for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Now, the question that is posed with this conversation, and I'm changing directions completely. I'm getting rid of my notes now because it's just so fun to talk to, and you make me think about one thing that a lot of businesses complain that sometimes when there's too much transparency and open dialogue, that it slows down the process of taking action and making decisions and moving.
Well, quit talking about it. Quit talking about it. It doesn't mean you have to sit there and talk about it. Just because you're transparent doesn't mean you're talking to death. Like, move on. That's the other piece of it that you have to be able to do. We're not here. I'm not here. I didn't, just because I'm being transparent with my team doesn't mean we're talking about it all the time. I mean, I don't need to sit there and hear your opinion. No, I didn't ask for it, but I'm being transparent about it. Now, if you have something to contribute. But if it's going to be to complain, that's a different thing. Don't come to complain. Don't come to bitch, but come with an answer. And if you don't have an answer, then don't talk to me.
Right. Because, I mean, why would you even be part of the team if you're going to come and just complain and not give any solutions, right? Like, you're paid to come up with solutions and not more problems.
Well, one thing COVID's taught me more than anything is I don't want drama. I'm done with drama. I'm done with people who can't handle things. I'm done with things that I just, I can't control the things I can't control. So I'll control the things I can control. And if you don't want to be a part of that solution, then you're part of the problem. Then I love you, but we'll miss you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay to have that conversation. Again, being very transparent, and I've got some great people that have been part of our team, and they're good team players. And I've got other people who are great producers, but the drama outweighs the production. The drama outweighs the value, and that's going to be a figure in the quotient. So, I have somebody tell me all the time, oh, that's a superstar, it's a superstar. But when you're a bigger POA, a pain in the you-know-what, than you are producing, then no, you're not.
Or not being a team player, right? Because I mean, sometimes you see producers, like I've been in sales for so many years and I've seen this too, like people that are just like, but they're just such a lone wolf. Like they just can't not work in a team,
Yeah, I think you've got to be, you got to be in the same forest together. Maybe you don't have to all be on the same team exactly the way that we always think. Like that means everybody together. Because I think that you need outliers. I think you need healthy tension in the system. So you need some people who push hard and who are those race horses in the stable that kick down the door, who never want to be in the stable. So I'm okay with that, right? Because they're still on the farm, but they're not in the barn. And I think that's important because they set an example for everybody else to go push, to be faster, to be quicker. And, as long as they're still on the farm, not necessarily in the barn, I'm okay. And, because at the same time, you've got those old, when I say, I should say old, I don't mean by age, but I mean by slow horses that pull the wagon. And you need those too, right? Right. But it's those horses that never pull and never race that you want to get rid of.
Yeah. It's really like what they're also setting as an example of what can be possible, right? Like what can be done, and that can make a huge difference in the momentum of a team for sure. I love.
And you need that friction, that friction that pulls people from the center of the stage to the edge of the stage, And the key for all of us in the company is to make sure that they don't fall off, or I don't fall off. That should be my job. I had a company exec I introduced, I had on my television show at Life Technologies. He said, you have to be irrational as a leader. And I thought, well, that's crazy. What do you mean you're irrational? And what he meant by that is that you tell everybody you're going from point A to point B, but you really tell them you're going way over here to C. All right. So, you just want to get them to B, but you tell them C, or you tell them that C. And the reason you tell them that C is you got to get them to B. So you have to stretch it further. So you have to tell them, we're going way over there. And they think, well, you're nuts, you're crazy, but you got them to B, which is greater than where you thought they were going to ever be.
Love it. Love it. Jeff, this has been such a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. And for those of you that are going to be listening on the replay, you can check it out. And please send me any questions if you have questions. And check out C-Suite Network, you guys, because that is by far the best networking group that I have found in many years of networking, not only in the US, I kid you not, but I've been part of networking groups in Europe, London, and different places. And I'm very, very surprised and impressed with the caliber of the people that I'm meeting and the opportunities there. So thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you for having me be a part of this. This is awesome.
Yes. All right. Thank you.